Morning, everyone. I'm just going to give it a minute or two, maybe 1 minute, just for the people joining to stabilize. So I'll go for awkwardly doing a little webinar dance or something for a minute, or just trying to be quiet. Okay, I can't hold silence for much longer than that. So I think we'll get going, and then those who join us later can always watch the exciting awkward bit at the beginning back later if they so desire. So welcome everyone to this webinar from NERC, part of UKRI, on the AI for environmental science funding opportunity that we currently have live. We're going to spend a bit of time this morning talking you through the funding opportunity and giving quite a lot of time, I hope, for some questions, some of which will be based on ones that have been submitted in the past, and others that we're going to ask you to submit as we go through the presentation. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So firstly, I should introduce myself. My name's Anna, and I'm Associate Director at NERC. I lead all things data technology and space. And I'm here with 3 colleagues today, and I'm going to ask them to give you an awkward wave. I'm here with Simon, with Sam, and with Emma. And they know lots more about this funding opportunity than me. I'm just here to front them and introduce them. They're going to talk to you a bit about the strategic context of this call, because it fits into a much broader context in the UK and internationally, with the advance of technology and the kind of political focus on that. They're going to talk to you a bit more about the specific requirements of the funding opportunity. And I really would emphasise there that we're not going to be sharing, lots of secret information that isn't already in the public domain. There's a lot of information in the published call document online, but we're going to be talking through some of that and enabling you to be able to ask some questions about it. Because I think it really helps to be able to talk through something as well as write it down, because you get some different ways of perceiving the information. As I said before, we're going to make as much time as possible to go through some questions and then invite you to ask questions. I'm not going to waffle a lot more, but I really wanted to say one big thing, and that's what's on this slide. If you took away only one thing from this call, it's about the words that we have chosen about the AI and data science. And I went through what's published online this morning myself, and there's a whole set of these words. So I had a little look for them. They're bold, ambitious, transformative, innovative, adventure or adventurous, risk or risky, creative, and potentially unconventional. And we've chosen these words really intentionally. They aren't a mistake, and they aren't just us going completely mad with a thesaurus. They're trying to actually make a really clear point about the purpose of this call, and that is about trying to drive bold, ambitious projects, as that first point says, that accelerate the development of leading-edge data science tools and AI to deliver new approaches and transformative solutions to the intractable environmental challenges of today and the future. I know there've been lots of questions about the scope of the call, and we will talk about that today, and I'm sure there'll be some more questions, but this is the core of the scope. So I think what you need to ask yourself, if you've got lots of questions for us, is how the language that I just used resonates with you, because what we're looking for is that kind of creativity and adventurous piece in the AI and the data science. If you take away one thing from this call, I really recommend that it's that's what we're seeking. That's the outcome we're seeking to drive by having this funding opportunity. And that's the thing that we're really looking for from you in terms of the applications that you're going to write. Perhaps after this funding opportunity, you never know. Maybe we'll put you off. Over to you, Simon, on that note.
Thanks, Anna. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the strategic landscape that informs this particular call. If I could just have the next slide. So a good place to start is the UK's new modern industrial strategy, which was published in June, just a few months ago. Earlier this year, which focuses on 8 key sectors to drive economic growth. Your eyes are probably darting in the direction of digital and technologies. So this sector focuses on making the UK a top global hub for technology business by supporting frontier technologies like artificial intelligence, but also things like quantum computing, and semiconductors. And some of the key goals associated with the industrial strategy are to develop the UK's sovereign AI capability, improve digital infrastructure and skills, and make the UK a leading hub for AI innovation and talent, and to implement a broader £2 billion AI action plan. So it's very pertinent to the nature of this particular call, and there are some significant hooks there for us. Next slide, please. And in terms of frontier technologies and AI itself, it's worth noting that AI generated over £14 billion to the UK economy and employed 64,500 people in 2023. And as a council, NERC has an important role to play in supporting economic growth, and this is an important aspect of this call. Next slide, please. There are also some existing strategies that are out there that are highly relevant to the funding opportunity. That includes the National AI Strategy and also the current UKRI AI document, Transforming Our World with AI. Both of these are currently being revised and will be published. And new versions of these strategies will be published and published later this year, probably before Christmas. But they're still relevant, very much relevant documents. And in particular, the AI for Science agenda, which looks to deploy AI and data science in priority areas to support the UK economy in order that these technologies can effectively address significant societal challenges. So there's an emphasis here on using AI to accelerate breakthroughs in important areas. So, for example, climate science, health, materials, engineering, biology. But also to invest in collaborations where we bring domain scientists and AI experts together to work hand in hand to tackle problems that were previously intractable. Next slide, please. It's also worth mentioning the NERC Forward Look, which was again published earlier this year in June. You can see on this slide the 3 forward look pillars, which focus on green growth, environmental security, and responsible innovation. So there are, very clearly links here to the aspiration to harness novel technologies and to innovate from our data, but also to use this more broadly to support all of the areas of the forward look that you can see on this slide. And you can, the forward look is readily available on the UKRI website, and I would suggest all of the applicants have a good read through it in order to inform the way they compose their bids. And next slide, please. And then finally, NERC also has its own digital strategy. This was published a few years ago now, back in 2022, but there is a clear theme contained within that document on data science tools and techniques, and the ambition to realize the potential of technologies such as artificial intelligence to advance world-leading environmental science. So in that sense, it is an important background document to inform the development of proposals for this funding opportunity. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about the scope of the call. Next slide, please. So in terms of headline information, NERC is investing £12 million across 5 years for this funding opportunity in AI for environmental science. There will be 2 phases, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But in phase 1, we've earmarked £4.8 million for that particular element of the call. The objectives are to develop AI and data science approaches to deliver high quality and trustworthy AI-ready environmental data sets. It's also important that this funding opportunity supports novel AI and data science capability and techniques, and this links to some of the things that Anna was mentioning earlier in the webinar, particularly in the areas of data analysis, modeling, and prediction, and also digitally enabled decisions. And the aim is very much to support breakthroughs in these approaches to tackle significant environmental challenges facing the UK and beyond. And then thirdly, we're very keen to promote, to facilitate the establishment of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and cross-disciplinary communities. So the aim really here is to leverage expertise and techniques across different areas of science and research to stimulate those innovative approaches. Next slide, please. So there are 3 focus areas associated with the funding opportunity, and the text that is used on this slide you will find on the funding opportunity itself on the UKRI website. These lie in the area of environmental hazards and human health. So the effective management of hazards and their impact on people. We gave some examples within the funding opportunity itself that related to air quality, flooding, droughts, heat stress, and wildfires, but these aren't intended to represent an exhaustive list of areas. Secondly, terrestrial ecology. So using data science and AI to provide insights into ecosystem and biodiversity changes. And thirdly, oceans and climate. So looking at sustainable ocean management and climate resilience, looking at our ability to understand and predict complex weather and ocean patterns, and potentially deliver more efficient ocean climate models. So these focus areas are written in deliberately high-level language. They are open to a degree of interpretation, but they're also intended to be fairly broad and inclusive. And I can see some of the questions coming up from the audience, and we'll try and deal with as many of those as possible later in the webinar itself. Next slide, please. So in terms of examples, and these are purely examples of potential approach, these could potentially include hybrid models, which bring together physics-based and data-driven approaches. They may involve the use of multimodal models, which are capable of integrating and interpreting diverse environmental and other data sets. They may relate to foundation models intended to provide insights and tools for better data analysis, prediction, and decision making. Or they could even relate to things like small language models designed to support environmental science in an energy efficient and sustainable way. In terms of the desired outcomes, again, examples include, but are not limited to, high quality and trustworthy AI-ready data sets, the more effective quantification and management of uncertainty and risk, more efficient and less carbon intensive approaches to modeling. NERC as a council are very interested in the sustainable application of frontier technologies, and AI is no exception. So that's worth bearing in mind when you're putting your proposal together. We've already worked quite a lot in the area of net zero digital research infrastructure and are leading some of those areas on behalf of UKRI. We're interested in novel approaches to simulation, prediction, and forecasting, developing trustworthy new decision support tools, and also looking at optimized solutions, particularly in relation to resource allocation problems. Next slide, please. And I think this is the final slide that I have in relation to scope. some broad messages here in terms of the fact that you are very much encouraged to work across research communities and disciplines, and to work closely with user communities, whether that be within the business, policy, or third sector, in order to ensure that you deliver impact. The other important thing to bear in mind is there is a very large and extensive existing portfolio across UKRI when it comes to AI and data science. So we really would support you to try and engage and connect with that existing ecosystem of investments. We're happy to help you do that, and to also try and connect you with some of those investments, and also to work closely with Responsible AI UK, who have a role to empower and connect that funded AI ecosystem. At that point, I'm going to hand over to Emma to talk about some of the specific requirements of the funding opportunity itself.
Thanks, Simon. Okay, so for this funding opportunity, we're looking to award up to £4.8 million in total, and this will fund between 9 to 12 projects at £200,000 to £400,000 each. These will be awarded at 80% of the final economic cost, with the only exception being eligible costs for international project co-leads, and these will be funded at 100%. This opportunity closes at 4 p.m. on the 11th of December this year, and the panel should be held in March next year. Awards must start on the 1st of July and last for 18 months, and then phase 2 should start seamlessly straight afterwards. So this program is made up of two phases, as Simon mentioned, and it has a total budget of £12 million over 5 years. So phase 1, this current opportunity that we are accepting applications for, is an open competition which will support a range of projects with high adventure, and we will have a high risk appetite when assessing applications. Phase 2, which will start on the 1st of January 2028, will be open only to those project leads which are successful at gaining phase 1 funding, and this will help them further progress their projects for an additional 42 months. The full economic cost of this phase 2 will likely be between £1.3 and £1.8 million per project. Just to give you an idea of what might make a project successful at phase 2, so we'll be looking at the impact you've made so far on your innovative approach, the potential of your idea to deliver further transformation if you had more funding, the real-world usability of your tools, technology, or approach being developed, and then finally the deliverability of your phase 2 plans, and this will include how appropriate your team, collaborators, and partners are in order to maximize impact. So to apply, you must be based at a UK research organisation, and these are included on the slide, but they include higher education institutions, research council institutes, approved independent research organisations, public sector research establishments, and catapults. You will also need to be in a role that meets the individual eligibility requirements. So for this opportunity, we're not allowing applications from PhD students or fellows, but the rest of the UKRI recognised roles will, and you can find these on the UKRI website. We also really strongly encourage the inclusion of digital research technical professionals, such as research software engineers and data scientists in applications. Project leads and project co-leads based outside the UK are not permitted, except for specific costs for project co-leads if you're from Norway or IASA. And businesses cannot be directly funded, but there are subcontracting and project partnership options, which we encourage you to use as well. So project partners must fund their own involvement. We will only fund minor expenses such as necessary travel costs for things like fieldwork and project meetings. We do not require any letters of support from your project partners as part of this submission, and there are no limits to the numbers of project partners permitted. We really do strongly encourage applications from consortia with different expertise and from across different disciplines. So this opportunity is not just open to the environmental science community, and we really want to emphasize this. So this slide now, I know we've had a lot of questions on demand management. So you as an individual must be involved in no more than 2 applications submitted, and only one of these can be as the project lead. You can be project co-lead or involved in other ways on another application. So we are expecting a really high level of interest, and we've got quite a few on the call on the webinar today. So we're trialing this approach of accepting a maximum of 4 applications per research organisation, or RO. So additional applications above this 4 will not be accepted, and ROs should not feel obliged that they have to fill this quota of 4. Please try and make sure you have quality applications coming in. This is mainly to manage the impact on the community in assessing such large volumes of applications. So we haven't set any specific expectations about the selection process ROs need to follow, but ROs are encouraged to ensure that applicants they support can demonstrate their ability to meet the expectations we have detailed in the what we are looking for section. So we ask that ROs, though, use an inclusive approach to selecting and maximising the wide diversity of candidates they can support. So we run this opportunity on the UKRI funding service, or TFS, and the project lead is ultimately responsible for completing and submitting the application process on time and no later than exactly 4 p.m. on the 11th of December. Any late applications won't be accepted. And finally, this assessment process, I'll give you some details on that now. So your applications will be assessed by a cross-disciplinary panel of independent experts using the 4 criteria: vision, approach, applicant and team capability to deliver, and ethics and responsible research and innovation. So the funding opportunity text gives you all the information you need, and it gives you the detailed assessment questions and things we will be looking for. So you should focus right in your application only on your phase 1 objectives and work packages. So these at the moment shouldn't be overlapping with potential phase 2 projects. So your clear plans should aim for success at the end of the 18-month period. However, in the vision section, one of the aspects we do ask for is you to write an initial vision of the potential longer-term impacts of the project if you were to be successful at winning both phase 1 and phase 2 funding. So we do want to fund work that will enable significant advances in our ability to tackle UK and global environmental challenges. We're looking for work, again, I just want to emphasise, that is novel, adventurous, and potentially transformative, and is cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, and/or multidisciplinary in both team and approach. So we're hoping that your work will also build trust and usability in the capability being developed. So applications may be based on environmental challenges in other countries or geographical regions around the world, but there must be some kind of UK relevance too. So thank you everyone for watching our presentation and for joining and listening. And we will now go to answering some of the questions you've sent in advance and some questions you've asked on the day. And I'll pass over to Sam Tailby now. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I've been trying to monitor your questions in the Q&A function, and the most popular question at the time is, does marine ecology fit under sustainable ocean management and climate resilience? And that's open to the panel.
Could you just repeat that question one more time?
Yeah. Does marine ecology fit under sustainable ocean management and climate resilience of the oceans and climate theme, or is it outside of the scope of this call?
I mean, as mentioned, the call text was written at a deliberately high level. My advice, or our advice in general, I think, would be if an area is not clearly ruled out within the text of the funding opportunity, then you should consider it. You should consider it, valid or within scope. There are sections of that oceans and climate text that do indeed link to sustainable ocean management, the development of algorithms for ocean data analysis. I think you should read into it what you can. There's probably enough room there for a variety of different approaches.
Thank you. We have some pre-submitted questions that I'm going to ask, sorry. Under eligibility, the question is, I wanted to double check whether businesses could apply and or not to the opportunity. If not, could we still be involved as subcontractors from the lead organisation? I have a response here. The answer is the lead organisation must be an approved research organisation based in the UK. Private sector collaborators have the option to be project partners or subcontractors, and project partners must fund their own involvement. And this will have been talked about during the webinar. Private sector collaborators are also permitted to be subcontractors, and they should provide a specific service to the project. They must be fully justified and will be subject to peer review. Okay. So that's the eligibility. The cost question, will the programme fund costs for ship and marine equipment? And that's open to the panel.
Yeah, so for this, we're not going to fund projects. We're not solely focused on data gathering for this call. Given the objectives of the programme, we don't anticipate project leads will request substantial use of ships and facilities. But ships and marine costs, and also the costs for the FAM Airborne Laboratory, they'll not be funded in the phase 1 of the programme, just due to the levels of funding available for individual projects and timescales and the deadlines for these ships and facilities. But for phase 2, ships and marine equipment can be funded, and these will need to be costed in by the project leads within their bid. So we do allow data gathering, but we don't want the projects to be solely about data gathering.
Okay. Next question is about scope. In this call, is there more of a focus developing novel AI solutions or in applying AI solutions to environmental problems to have a greater impact on environmental science?
I'll take that one, Sam. I think it's really useful to go back to some quite carefully chosen language in the call document, which was that we envisage that applicants will develop and use novel AI and data science approaches to tackle the environmental challenges above in a range of different ways. We find it quite interesting to think about how to frame in a really brief way that the spectrum of the piece from developing and using AI and data science. So what we've tried to do is really articulate that both are important to us and that we're seeking applications across that spectrum. We're not putting a particular weighting on one or the other. And so what we're thinking about is, not specifying the importance of the level of each. I know that's really annoying. We're going to give you lots of answers where you're like, oh, why won't you say exactly yes or no, please, guys? But I think it's because the way we've framed this is to try to include quite a number of different novel and adventurous approaches to give you the opportunity to justify why the thing that you want to do addresses what we've set out in the call document. And that might mean that there aren't always perfect black or white answers. So hopefully we can help a little bit today, but there won't always be magic answers that help you know that you definitely fit. It's really about how do you articulate the fit to that ambitious novel vision that we've tried to set out.
Okay, the next question is, can my project focus on freshwater or marine habitats, which I kind of touched on earlier, but yeah, thanks
Sam. I'll try and pick that one up. So for the terrestrial ecology theme, we are talking only about land-based ecosystems, so things like forests, grasslands, deserts, all the interactions between their sort of living organisms, whether that's on the plant, animal or microbe level, and non-living environment as well, so soil, air, water, climate. So this focuses on things like the flow of energy, the cycling of nutrients, distribution of biodiversity across different biomes. Terrestrial freshwater marine ecosystems are distinct disciplines within the ecosystem category. So this call, or this particular part of the call, is focusing only on terrestrial. However, as I mentioned earlier, under the oceans and climate pillar, the text does refer to things like sustainable ocean management and algorithms for ocean data analysis. So in other parts of the funding opportunity, we are intentionally keeping the scope broad and flexible.
Next question. Could you clarify how NERC defines AI-driven innovation within this call? In particular, does the scope include hybrid physics AI approaches? And related, will proposals be viewed more favourably if they include AI properly speaking versus data science more generally?
There's a good question in there. I particularly like the phrasing, some of AI properly speaking. I think we've again been trying to be quite careful to talk about both AI and data science. We are not going to offer you a definition of what we mean by AI here, and that again is intentional to be able to give the space for the kinds of novel, adventurous approaches we would like to see you take. So the scope includes, to be clear, all data science and AI approaches. I think it's again up to you to think about how to articulate that. I think I've frozen, so I will stop.
You're unfrozen now. Okay. Next question: should projects focus on environmental issues within or outside the UK, and can I include international partners?
Okay, I'll answer that. So the environmental issue, it can affect countries outside the UK, as I mentioned earlier, but it must be a challenge that is somewhat relevant to UK issues or issues the UK might face. So even though project leads and co-leads, must be based inside the UK, you can include international partnerships, and we do happily welcome that. So as I mentioned earlier, both UK-based and international project partners can have some travel subsistence costs covered to help facilitate these relationships.
Thank you, Emma. And one last question regarding scope. Could you confirm whether the intended scope covers environmental hazards in the broader sense, including anthropogenic risks, such as air and water pollution, urban heat and exposure pathways, or whether it's focused primarily on natural hazards such as flooding and drought? And what other types of environmental hazards such as chemical and biological hazards? What about other types of environmental hazards such as chemical and biological hazards?
I'll take that one. Again, I'll be pesky and say to some extent it's up to you to make the case for how your proposed research addresses the scope articulated in the funding opportunity. We'll be asking the panel to take a view on whether your proposed research addresses that scope, but they will not have some more magical scope information than the information that has been published. So that's really what you should work with. I think we have intentionally taken a broad definition of hazard as a word by virtue of having included both environmental hazard and natural hazards in the call text. And I think as a consequence, it's probably the area we're getting asked the most questions about, which is quite understandable. I think from our point of view, having used both environmental and natural, this does include anthropogenic risks. I managed to say it, Sam, I did wonder if I would too. However, we suggest that you need to demonstrate some applicability to the natural environment or environmental challenges, and there does need to be a link to people, the impact on people and human health. I think we've been relatively clear about that in the document. So it isn't just about the hazards, but also about the impact on people and their health. Thank you.
The next question is around phase 2 of the programme. So if a project was successful at progressing to phase 2, could the team expand to include more collaborators or project partners as appropriate?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I'm happy to pick this one up. Yeah, of course. That sort of natural progression would be welcomed, especially for a project to deliver the sort of enhanced impact that would be expected in phase 2, and there would be a consequent need to develop the consortium going forwards and expand the number of partners involved in to help with the delivery of that enhanced level of ambition.
Thank you, Simon. I've got a question around demand management. The funding opportunity text states that ROs are expected to use an inclusive approach to selecting and maximising the diversity of applicants they intend to support. Do you have further guidance on how this should be done in practice and whether it needs to be reported on?
Okay, so I did go over quite a bit of detail earlier on in the webinar. So as I said, we haven't set specific expectations about the exact process to be followed. And we do want research organisations to ensure that the applicants meet the expectations of what we're looking for. But we do expect as well host organisations to consider diversity in the broader sense of the word. So they might want to consider the applicant's discipline, their background, their career stage, their thought and their approach, as well as the protected characteristics. So we're not requiring the ROs to report on the characteristics of potential versus selected applicants as compared to the broader institutional staff profiles. And we're not asking for the ROs to report on the process they've chosen. This can be done in-house.
Thank you, Emma. And we have one final question on evaluation. What are the reporting requirements if successful?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. So projects are going to be asked to complete a light touch biennial progress report as part of the reporting requirements for the program, as well as an end of program evaluation. And this will include a form of carbon assessment as well. This is something that we're interested and invested in undertaking for this program.
Thank you, Simon. Okay. I'm just looking at the questions in the Q&A, and some of them have already been answered live. So I think one of the burning questions is, in the call it says fellows can apply. Is this no longer the case? That's the one.
Sam, did you say it says fellows can apply in the call text?
It says in the call, it says fellows can apply. Is this no longer the case?
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
But I think fellows and PhD students are not able to apply to this.
Let's take it offline. We've got the kind of
Yes.
fairly standard eligibility text in the call document. I think people have got confused because of what you said earlier, but we will make sure that we follow up on an answer to that question. And my instinct is that it follows the standard eligibility criterion for all NERC UKRI calls as published in the document.
Apologies. Okay, we have another question. What do you expect the first phase to deliver? A proof of concept that provides a foundation for phase 2, or tangible results stroke demonstrators in itself?
We're going for that bit where you can't make eye contact with each other to work out who's going to answer the question, right? I mean, I think it's an interesting balance of the two, because ultimately I would expect there to be something novel and adventurous that you've been delivering. That's the reason we've designed the call in this way, to have a kind of distinct pump prime short phase. But in order to be able to unlock the funding for the second phase, Emma talked earlier about what successful phase 2 applications would be expected to have demonstrated. So that was about the impact to date of their innovative approach, the potential to deliver further transformation, the real world usability of the tools and technology, and the deliverability of plans for the second phase. So what you would need to be doing in that first phase is both addressing the kind of criteria in terms of that ambition and that novelty, but also thinking about how would you have something that actually you could develop further in a second phase, addressing those kinds of expectations. So really thinking about it as a kind of stage gate prove something in the first phase, and then actually how would you build upon that and do a much more substantial activity in a second phase if you were successful? I hope that helps.
Thank you. We do have some questions around human health. So does the environmental hazards and human health theme require research on the health aspect, or is impact on people enough? To anyone.
I mean, it's an interesting question. Can you just repeat that one more time, Sam, for me?
Okay. Does the environmental hazards and human health theme require research on the health aspect, or is impact on people enough?
I think we have a degree of overlap in terms of what's being asked here. I see it almost as part of a continuum. Whether you're, I mean, it depends how you define health aspect. To me, really, whether we're looking at individual effects, population effects, or something else. So it may be a level of detail that you don't have to get to in relation to being in scope under this particular pillar. I mean, once again, I would just encourage you to go back to the text and try and write your proposal as applicably as possible.
Okay. Okay, I've got a question about writing the bid. Should we write the whole bid, phase 1 and 2, in phase 1 to give overall vision, or just write about phase 1?
I can answer that. This should just be written about phase 1. This is like a discrete kind of funding opportunity. Phase 2 will be separate. So phase 1, you've got to talk about what you're going to deliver in phase 1. Like I said, you can mention slightly about your longer term vision, but everything you write about needs to be deliverable in phase 1 with the funding you'll be awarded. Anything else to add, anyone? Is that fine? Yeah.
Okay. Let's have a look. Sorry.
It's me that's still fully archiving them when they've been answered for you, Sam. I hope that's helping.
Okay. I'm wondering what's happening to them. I go, oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Is there a pathway for smaller non-profit research institutes, for example, those not traditionally eligible for UKRI funding, to be able to contribute towards this call?
Emma's picked up quite a bit of this one already, but if your organisation isn't eligible to apply for UKRI funding, if you look at the eligibility requirements that are set out in the call on the website, you cannot apply as a lead. But we've already talked quite a bit about the role of project partners and subcontractors, and I would suggest that that's the route that you should look at if you want to work perhaps in partnership with other organisations who are eligible to receive UKRI funding. That will be the most appropriate route.
Okay. Okay. Does the call include pollution or toxicology predictions?
I think, as Anna mentioned earlier in one of her responses, because we're using a fairly broad definition of hazard in terms of natural hazard and environmental hazard, this can also include anthropogenic sources as well as natural sources, Sam. So hopefully that goes some way to answering that particular question.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. How will government strategies and missions be assessed in the call? Will they be nice to have, or are they essential?
Again, I think what we're looking for is real world impact and relevance. So part and parcel of that, I think, is referencing some of the aims and objectives of those sort of documents. We want the research undertaken to be as relevant as possible.
Yeah,
and also to work with end user communities, potentially including policy communities too. Sorry, Emma, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the exact things we'll be assessing are in the document. So we've got quite a number of bullet points, and these are the exact things. The panel will be looking at these points and exactly these points when they're assessing.
Okay. So I've got another question. And does the fact that it can involve hybrid / multimodal approaches mean that the grant can be used to collect that data, i.e. can part of the proposal for the budget project be funding the field and lab work to get the data to enter into a model or training of AI?
Yes, we don't exclude that. We just don't want it to be just gathering data for the whole project. We want to see what will be done with that data. So we do allow that, yes.
Okay, I think this question's been answered. Can you elaborate what you would expect to see at the end of phase 1? Given the request to form teams of multiple partners across sectors and the maximum bid available, it would be useful to understand the level of outputs UKRI would expect to see in a bit more detail.
I think we can only really return to the funding opportunity text here, Sam, which we've mentioned several times already, particularly in terms of what we would expect to see demonstrated during phase 1.
Yeah, there are no additional mystery expectations that are not published in that document. We're not trying to be annoying by going back to the document. It's very much, the assessment criteria, as I think Emma's already talked through, really set out for you what we're trying to see within this call and what good looks like by the end of the first phase. So that assessment is about the vision, the approach, the team, and the kind of ethics and RRI essentially. I really encourage you to kind of go back to think about those, about what that novel piece would have been if you've done the pump priming work by the end of that first phase.
I'm just checking to see if there's questions that we haven't covered yet. Will government or policymakers / business representatives sit on the assessment panel?
I mean, I think probably the quick.
Yes.
Go on, Emma.
Oh,
sorry.
I was going to say we want to get together a really broad panel to cover all of the possible expertise that might come in. As we've said, we encourage you to include different sectors in your consortia if you can. So we definitely want to have representations upon these who do have that viewpoint. Do you want to add anything to that, Anna?
No, I was just saying, I think that we haven't put the panel together yet, so there isn't a panel we're magically hiding from you. But I think that's the key is we need to be able to assess the breadth of the criteria. So we'll need people who can think about the users, who can think about those environmental challenges, and who can think about the novelty and adventure in the AI, who aren't applying to the call. So I think that will require us to put together quite a kind of mixed cross-disciplinary panel, including with government users and businesses and others. So, yeah.
Thank you both. Under the subject of evaluation, How will the team capability be evaluated? Is it best on past experience of publications based, considering the call asks for novel and adventurous approach?
Well, all of the criteria is there in the document. So it's about having relevant experience, appropriate to your career stage, the right balance of skills and expertise to cover the proposed work, appropriate leadership and management skills. This is not just based upon publications, of course not. This is your wider skill set and wider things you've done in the past. And ultimately, it is for the panel to decide as well, not for us to decide.
I was going to ask this slightly cheeky question, Emma. If people are looking for that information that you just read out, because I was at the same time as you were saying it, because I was trying to think, oh, where is that? Where should they look in the document? We could always put it in the chat afterwards, but it's quite helpful just to be able to point people in the right direction. And I didn't know, so I thought I would ask you because I might not be the only person on the webinar.
Sure, it's under the Funding Opportunity page, is under how to apply, and then if you keep going down, it's got the application questions, and everything we're looking for is under there, including the team capability.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it says everything the assessors will be looking for. So this is the information the panel will have, and that's the information you have.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a question about subcontracting costs. Did you say that subcontracting costs for a specific piece of work contributing to the research from a project partner, business or charity would be allowable?
So I think I answered one of those in the chat. There's some quite useful standard guidance in UKRI on subcontracting. We're not making any difference for this call unless Emma's shaking her head at me wildly, which I don't think she is, in terms of those standard pieces on subcontracting. It's always been possible to subcontract across an awful lot of our calls in UKRI. I think one thing I would encourage you to do is just really think about how you justify why you might need to subcontract this particular organisation, but that's very possible. You just need to really think about how to articulate it, because the question is, how would you assess that appropriateness of the subcontractor rather than, say, another partner or other subcontracting organisation if you were sitting on the panel assessing it?
Okay. Some have been answered on here already. Okay, so the terrestrial ecology scope mentioned insights into ecosystem and biodiversity changes. Does it include catchment systems?
I think potentially. I don't think I don't think scale is necessarily the issue in terms of how the different areas are defined. So again, I would direct the individual back to the core text, and if it's not clearly excluded on the basis of that text, then I would assume that it's within scope.
Okay, I think a lot of the questions have already been answered or come under the same theme that we can add to the frequently asked questions documentation. Yeah. So I think for now, that would be it, unless, Anna, you can see any burning questions that you'd like to answer online. Okay.
I'm not sure that there are any. We could give people like 1 minute to just check if there are any that they really want to upvote that we haven't answered. That's sometimes the best way to check that there isn't a burning one from anybody else's perspective. But I think we've covered quite a lot of them. There is a question, I think it might be useful just to pick up quickly, Emma, about whether the funding can be used to cover compute costs of the research. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that.
Yes, we haven't excluded this. That's possible, yes.
Great. Yep, I think that's it.
I think so too, Sam. I think apologies if we think we haven't perhaps picked up on your specific question. What we will try and do is take all the questions and use those to enrich the FAQs document that we've already started, so that there's a really good place for you to find any of the answers to the questions that you might have. We will make sure that that is made available to you along with the recording and the slides from today. Apologies that I didn't say that at the start. And we will make sure that they're also openly available to anybody that didn't attend, so that they can also watch us doing our awkward webinar faces and enjoy it as much as you have done on this lovely Friday. I just wanted to say thank you very much to all of you for attending, and thank you to my colleagues for putting together this brilliant, really useful webinar. I know there are lots of questions. I really hope that we've answered them, and we really look forward to seeing the exciting applications that we're going to have through this call. Did I miss anything, Emma, team?
No, you got everything.
I don't think so, Anna.
Brilliant, thank you. I was just checking. I don't always read the instructions, you know. On that note, thank you very much, and we'll see you all soon, we hope. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.